Welcome to Caring Community with your host, Jay West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcome. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Hi, I'm Jay West. Welcome to Caring Community. Good to have you here today. My special guest, Dr. Linda Burkle.
Yes.
Yeah, you got your name right. I had to
Thank
think
you.
because somebody else had told me a different way to say it. And I was like, wait, don't say it wrong. So
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
To be here, Jay.
So you and I have kind of casually known each other off and on for several years, but not. I mean, last summer when we had lunch with a friend, we got to know each other better. Yeah. And now you're on my prayer team at King of Kings, so that's really an honor. Tell us, why don't you just share a little bit about your prayer journey?
Well, sure. Well, actually, I was going to mention I hadn't really actually met you until last summer, but I'd been praying for you all through your journey.
Oh, I thought we had met earlier. Okay.
I don't think so. With your wife, I've seen you before. I've been involved lots of ministry.
Right.
So, wow, my prayer journey. Wow. Oh, golly, where do I begin? Well, in the big picture thing, my whole life I've really felt a calling to just, really seek the Lord. I just love Jesus from the time I was a little girl. And when I was in high school, I developed my personal mission statement or vision statement, which is to glorify God and serve others. And my life verse is Isaiah 61, 1 through 3. And so pretty much everything I've done in my life has kind of gone around that. And so prayer really has, for me, prayer is the overarching thing. You don't do something and then pray about it. You pray first.
It's interesting because when I go to churches, in denominational churches, and I travel a lot, I bring that statement up. I said, you should pray first and then develop your plan.
Yeah.
But so many pastors have told me, said it never crossed my mind to pray first. We just develop our plan. We work for hours on our strategy and we ask God to bless it at the end.
I pray about everything, even parking spots, if I'm shopping for clothes. And, it's just for me, it's kind of an ongoing conversation. And even like during the night when I wake up, I'll be praying, or else I'll just say, Jesus, I love you. Or, I just, I don't know how people live without prayer. It's just so critical.
I think prayer is like 10,000 little conversations all day long. Just
Absolutely.
Little short ones, little bursts.
Pray without ceasing. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And my challenge is because I'm always talking to God to give him time to talk back to me. That's my biggest challenge, So my prayer journal, I have basically it's a two-way conversation with the Lord.
I have intentional pause times.
Yeah.
Where I just pause and I go, okay, it's time to pause.
I know.
Whether he talks or not, I'm just going to pause and listen.
Well, I just finished reading your book, Willing to Yield. That was really good, and I know you mentioned that in there as well. We need to pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I try to do that. I'll just say, okay, Lord, what do you want to say? And for me, it's better if I've got my journal and a pen in hand so I can write down what I'm hearing him say.
Right. I tell people to do that too. I said, always have a pen and pencil with you when you pray, because that's good. So what are your top 3 prayer emphasis?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have
besides buying clothes and getting a parking space.
What did you say?
Besides buying clothes and getting a parking space.
Well, what I would say my 3 top would be, first of all, that I would fulfill all that the Lord has for me. Leaving a legacy of faith is really important to me, and taking as many people with me as I can. And, of course, that all my family would be saved and until Jesus comes. And then after that, golly, I'm a personal intercessor for a couple of different people in addition to yourself. And some of that is more demanding than others. One is an international figure, so I get lots of emails, with prayer requests throughout the week. And so that's something I take very seriously. When people ask me to pray for them, I do, and I usually do it on the spot if I'm one-on-one, and sometimes people aren't accustomed to that, and then the nation, praying for the nation. And the Lord has put things on my heart. In fact, sometimes people tell me that I need to focus more on one thing because I have such a heart for children. when I was little, I said I was going to adopt all the orphans in the world. My mom said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, I'm going to marry a millionaire. Well, I did adopt 2, and I've been a sponsor to a number of children, and I've been to a number of orphanages around the world. So children and this whole abortion issue was a huge issue I've been praying into for years. And and then also human trafficking is a huge issue for me, having worked in that field also for several decades, actually. And then our nation would return to the Lord. I think those are probably, of course, that everyone would be saved, obviously, you know. There's so many things to pray about, Jay. Right. I've got long lists in my prayer journal. So, and when people ask me to pray for them, I do. I mean, I'll be praying like until I hear that something has changed. And sometimes I'll even forget they asked me to pray, and I'll get back and say, how did that go? So I take it seriously when people ask me to pray for them.
Mm-hmm. So how many, if you had to guess, how many hours a day do you think you just really pray?
Oh, golly. Well, that's hard to say.
On the average?
Well, from the in formal prayers, I'm in 9 different prayer times a week with other people, okay, 9 times a week. And then myself, boy, I don't know, it just seems like it's pretty much off and on.
So what would you tell people, because I know this, and you know this, I think, that prayer is one of the hardest disciplines in the Christian walk. So what would you tell people who maybe only do 2 or 3 minutes a day and they feel like they've worn God out and they're exhausted, you know what I'm saying? How would you tell people what would you encourage them to say or do that would increase the volume, even up to 15 minutes a day or
right.
30 minutes a day?
Well, for me, I'm a little ADD. Well, okay, I'm a lot ADD. So I get easily distracted. So for me, if I have my prayer journal and go through that, that keeps me on track. But then I also pray for other things. Because if I'm in a focused time of prayer, like during my devotional time in the morning, you know, it is easy to get distracted. So that's why I have all my, what I call my listed prayers, you know, I take before the Lord, but then I also pray throughout the day. My biggest prayers I say throughout the day is, Lord, it's in you that I live and move and have my being. You know, it's of you, by you, for you, through you, in you, it's of you, it's all you, you know, just giving him praise, you know, I'll just show, I love you, Lord, you know, I'm just so grateful to be your child, you know, and just those kind of things.
One of the things I tell people is to pray out loud instead of in their mind. Because
I do that too.
If you pray in your mind, it's really easy to get distracted.
It is.
And if you pray out loud, it keeps you on track.
It is. Absolutely.
We were talking about Rebecca, a friend of ours. She was on the last show, and I told her this week, I said, I was praying for the last few weeks, I've been praying in the Spirit for 30 minutes every day. And that just keeps you on track with that.
I've been doing that more and more because I think there's been so much warfare. I found I need to really do that more. So I've really been ramping that up a lot, praying in the Spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us about your church over in Council Bluffs a little bit. Why do you
Wow.
go there?
Well,
what's exciting about it?
It's hard to say. You know, I've actually, last year I was in 5 different churches every week. You know, and for different things, you know, different prayer groups and different Bible studies. And the Lord, I was in so many Bible studies and so many prayer meetings, the Lord really convicted me. I was cutting into my personal time with Him, my one-on-one time, you know, because I have a tendency to be kind of overdoing it. And so I cut back quite a bit. Now I'm basically, my home church is King of Kings. I love King of Kings. And then King of Kings, like most churches, closed down with COVID, you know, in the spring of 2020, and they didn't reopen till in the fall. Well, during that time, Victory Fellowship in Council Bluffs, we found opened in May right away, and so we started going there, and we really, when I say we, I'm talking about a friend of mine and I.
You should have come to Kingdom Encounters. We only closed for 4 weeks, so anyway.
Well, I didn't even know about Kingdom Encounters.
Yeah,
so we started going there, and what I like about it is that it is it's a smaller church, and it's almost more like a family. You know, I know almost everybody there not everybody, but a lot of people by first name. And, you know, and that's something I enjoy. You know, and during the church, you know, pastor will say, does anybody have this particular ache or pain? It sounds a lot like what you do, Jay. And then people come around that person and pray for them during the service. So it's not as programmed as some of the
Right.
larger churches, where when I've asked if we can pray about a certain issue, on a certain day, well, it doesn't fit into the program. That's what I've gotten.
Right.
So this is much more, there's a lot more of I would say spontaneous, but yet it still has a sermon and praise and all that, So
Right.
that's what I like about it. I'm really, I kind of feel, my roots are really with King of Kings, and I do love King of Kings too, but now I've gotten this family group kind of at Victory,
Right.
so I'm kind of between the two, I would say. I still go to King of Kings once in a while, and I do like it. I'm hoping that they do something. I think that you're going to have some Wednesday services in the evening, is that right, or something?
Starting in September, yeah.
But because I know years ago we had that, and that's where the Holy Spirit was, in my opinion, was really moving. Not that it doesn't move on Sunday morning,
Right.
but we had people were be able to give prophetic words, which prophecy is also one of my giftings, and just it was there was just a lot more of that interaction with the Holy Spirit.
Right. Yeah, and I like that, giving the prophecies, allowing people. My theme verse, one of my theme verses is Ephesians 4:12, equipping the saints to do the work of the ministry.
Yes.
And I added not to do it for them.
Yes.
And so when you do it for them, they never get a chance.
That's right.
And they never get a chance to try. Even if they make a mistake, they never get a chance. And so I like to equip people, release them, and then help them a little bit, give them some evaluation, but just say, hey, go for it, and see what happens.
When I was young, when I was little, I wanted to be a pastor, but I was informed I couldn't because I was a girl. There you go. And, my paternal grandfather, his father was a Missouri pastor, it was a German-speaking church, though. And so I was so blessed, though, because for 30 years I worked in a church where I could preach. Women were pastors, and I was able to, not very often, but once in a while preach, and I got to preach. I preached in India, I preached in Africa in several countries. I, preached at a church opening. There were about 3,500 people there. One of the offerings gifts was a live goat. I mean, with all, 3 or 4 translators, it's just.
I got a ring once. Somebody gave me their wedding ring.
Oh, wow.
An engagement ring or something.
I wonder if they're still married.
Well, no, they weren't, and that was part of the thing. But they just gave it, but then after they gave it, they were kind of reticent that they'd actually given it. I found out, so I sent it back to them. So.
Well, and so when I was working, I felt like I was a pastor of all these staff that worked under me, about 160, 200 people, and I also worked with pastors in the church. About 70 different pastors, and for me, I would send prayer encouraging notes to them, and I always pray with them when I met with them.
Right.
And I really saw my role as being kind of like a shepherding spiritual leader of the people that were under me. And but I want to be remembered as someone that prays. That's my main deal. I really also want to grow my prophetic gifting. God's really blessed me. I mean, I've taken some real risks with that. I'm surprised I've taken some of the risks I've taken. And, but he's so good. And I have to tell you something funny. So about a year, my daughter moved to Missouri, and they were looking for a house for a long time. They ended up living in a rental, and then they finally bought some property. But so last year I said, well, I think the house is going to be, I said, I just have this vision. The house is going to have red brick with white, white paint trimming or whatever. And she says, oh, I hate red brick. And so I never even I just kind of passed through my mind. Well, then they moved into a rental for 6 months, and the rental was kind of a Spanish-style house. It wasn't what I had my vision. Well, so then in May, I went down. They did buy their land with their house. They're still living in the rental. The house needs to be fixed up. But so I went down there with my son, and I thought, and I told my daughter driving back home, I said, you know what? The house is red brick with white trim, just like the Lord showed me. And she said, yeah, I totally forgot about it. I said, so did I. But, it's just a confirmation from the Lord,
Right. Yeah, I was talking last night about the Lord different times, like when I'm in California or whatever, or other places, and the Lord told me there was going to be an earthquake. And earthquakes are really hard to predict, so.
Yeah.
But the Lord just showed me the date and the time or whatever, and they've happened. And so, yeah, and that's all a learning curve too.
It is.
Because the Lord, when I first started, the Lord would give me things, and I would write them down, but I wouldn't share them. And He said, I didn't give them to you to write down, I gave them to you to verbally release them, And if you're not going to share them, I'm going to quit talking to you. So I started doing it, And, nobody sees perfectly. You know, the Bible says we see through a dark glass dimly.
But I love in your books, Jan, I just love the examples you give of how the Lord moves. You know, for a long time in the Missouri Synod Church, at least, people didn't really practice the gifts of the Spirit, and there was kind of the perception. And my brother still is an elder in a church, and he's kind of where, you know, the healing gifts, the miracle healing gifts ended with the apostles, you know, in the Bible. Well, we know that's not true. You know, I've seen them, you've experienced it. And what really opened my eyes to honestly was in 1993, I went on my first mission trip, and I've done, I don't know, maybe over 30 cents, but it was to the jungles of Nigeria. And we had an eye-opening experience because we were working with more of a Pentecostal type person on the ground. And so we did witness that, and we witnessed people, you know, being slain in the Spirit and thing. And none of us had ever seen that before, that kind of stuff. So it really was an eye-opener to me.
Right. There's a local pastor here in the area who went to Africa, and then he came back and he contacted me and said, I saw these healings over in Africa. I want to see them in my church. So he started having me in on a regular basis to do healing services, and people started getting well, you know. And,
well, you know,
let me just finish. He took some heat from the upper echelon, the people, you know, leaders and everything else. He said, well, what do I do about this person and this person and this person that got well? You know, why would we stop? Would it be fair to say, well, okay, these 3 got well, but now these 30 over here don't get well because of your theological position.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, because we limit the Spirit. Even in the Bible, Jesus says, I couldn't do miracles there because of their unbelief. And so that's one of the things I really would want to grow in. I really want to grow in the ability to pray for people and see those kind of healings. I have not personally seen those. Maybe they've happened, but I have not been there when they've happened after the fact.
I pray for a lot of people that are not in a service. I pray for them at Starbucks and at Target and at Walmart. You know, and on the airplane, at the hotel, you know, and they get well right in front of you. So I would say start taking the risks.
Well, so a couple months ago, I was somewhere and I was in a meeting with this guy who was trying to sell me something. And he said that he had cancer, and I said, I'm sorry, we need to just stop right now. The Holy Spirit's telling me I need to pray for you right now, because he was going to go in to see if it had been reoccurring. And so I just stopped him right there. But he sounded like he might have been a Christian, but it didn't matter. You know, I just really felt led by the Holy Spirit. And I'm praying to have more of courage to do that, to just, you know, go up to people in grocery stores and everything and do that. I think that's wonderful. And so I am taking a few more risks. The biggest risk I took with prayer and prophecy was when this woman's husband was dying, and they were literally planning her funeral, while I called to say, the Lord showed me he's going to live. I don't know if I've ever shared that. I may have shared that with you before. So here they are. He's been sick for a long time. They're literally planning a funeral, and the Lord is telling me, you know, because I've been praying that he was going to live. It's a woman that I worked with. And so I called him. I said, Linda, her name was Linda. I said, I just really need to tell you, as I prayed, the Lord is telling me Randy is going to live. And she said, we're planning his funeral at this moment. And, you know, he lived that was over 20 years ago. He just died like this past year, I think. And she always would come to me and say how much that meant to them. And so he would come and visit her. He'd always stop at my office and see me, you know, because they said that just was just such a reassurance to them, you know. But that was a big risk. You know, what if he would have died? You know what I mean?
So I'm just curious, a little time left. What's your doctorate in?
Actually, it's in international relations, and my dissertation was on religious freedom, which is why I write articles now monthly.
Because you mentioned to me that my friend Sam Brownback, who heads up the religious freedom, that's where Jason and I are going to Washington, D.C. next week
I know,
to be part
I'm
of
jealous.
that conference. So,
I have never met him. I would love to meet him. I know he's not in that role anymore, but I just...
Well, actually he is just
he?
Not officially. He's doing it on his own.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's been to a number of countries. He's hosting this conference.
Because didn't he work for the White House? Wasn't he the ambassador of religious freedom?
Right. He actually worked for the State Department.
The State Department is under, because that whole is under the State Department. And then, so I do a lot of my research. I really do look at what the State Department is putting out. I look at what the U.S. Commission of International Religious Freedom is putting out. But no, I would love to go to some of those conferences. And so right now I'm just doing that as a volunteer, just to kind of keep my toe in the water, because I really am, persecution is a big thing. I also pray for all the time of the persecuted Christians with the target on their back, you know, that are really... and
do you have a master's degree before the doctorate?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I started out in social work. Then I decided when my kids were little, I was going to get a doctoral in psychology. And that was a crazy decision. I didn't pray about it. Which, was a disaster, and it was. I was working full-time at Boys Town as an administrator. I had 3 little kids. I was taking some classes. My son was in an accident and got burned badly. And that just ended that. And I never went back after that. And then I realized the Lord wasn't in that. That was Linda in her flesh, And so then, this is what's so interesting. So then in 1997, was that when I went to South Africa? I think so. I've had God's given me so many amazing experiences. I mean, working at Ground Zero, working with refugees in Albania. I mean, I've had amazing experiences the Lord has given me. And people always say, you're remarkable. I said, I'm not remarkable. I'm just an ordinary person from a girl that grew up on a farm in North Dakota. But God has just given me experiences. I said, it's about saying yes. Right. And I know that's your mentality. You just say yes to him. Yes, I'll go. But anyway, so I woke up. It was in March 1997. I woke up at 3 in the morning, and the Lord said, get your degree, get a PhD in international relations. And I said, okay. So next morning I went to work. I started calling. Well, there wasn't any program in Omaha in that field. So in Lincoln, there was a political science program in international relations. So I enrolled. Now I have a full-time job as an administrator. So I'm commuting like 3 years. Was it 3 years? Back and forth in the evening taking classes. It was really challenging. I mean, I told the Lord, why am I doing this? I mean, I had no time, in my life. I was just school and then work. Right. And so then finally that ended. And at that point, what I was doing, I had to get I had a master's degree in counseling as well. So I was a licensed mental health practitioner, but I never really practiced. It was more, I oversaw people that practiced, but I was an administrator. Right. So at that point, I just thought, okay, this is going to be a long haul. So I had to get my master's first in political science. So I had gotten all the master's coursework done. And then what happened is my secretary died at that time, and I was studying for the comps. So I had gotten A's and B's in all my classes, but I failed the comps. It isn't just on your grades. You have to take those comps. Okay, I failed them, and I was devastated. I mean, I thought, Lord, you told me to do this. And so it was like somebody hit me in the gut, And right. So when I got that news, I couldn't believe it, I could not believe it. But I knew I hadn't studied much. She got sick, and I'd been on a mission trip to the Amazon. Maybe I should have been home studying, etc. So anyway, I went down the office, down the hall, and there was a woman, a pastor there that I worked with. And I told her, and she said, Linda, delay is not denial. Right. That's what she said. And so I started looking for other schools. And so I ended up going to an international school. Almost all the work was online. And then we had a residency we did for 6 weeks in the summer. My boss gave me permission to go and do that in West Indies. And there were only 22 of us, and they were from all over the world. It was wonderful. There were ambassadors and other people. And so I was down there then for that. And then I did, that was my residency. And then my dissertation, I had different people from different colleges. Like I had a woman that's a PhD, a social work instructor for UNO, and different instructors on my PhD, my committee, But I did a lot of work on that. It was fascinating. The thing is, God opened doors. I had individual interviews in the State Department with right. people from these countries I was studying right. And that would have never happened after 9/11. Right. It would have never happened. I was in, and this is what's so cool how God works. I have to tell you,
Did you get in the State Department in
Oh
DC?
yeah,
I've been in there several times. I just wondered.
Yeah, I have to tell you what happened. Okay. So this is such a God has done. I mean, I have so many God stories, but anyway, I don't know how much time do we have.
About 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll wrap this up, but this is just so cool. Okay, so anyway, I know I've got so many God stories, but so I was going to Israel with Jonathan Trinkline. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we were going to go. It was like the day after Christmas I left. Well, I got on a different plane, and my plane, I ended up having to spend an overnight in Washington, D.C. I came in a day later, but this is what God did with that. So I had a list of the people I had to meet at the State Department that I got from my senators. I had a list of their names. I didn't even have any names. I just had the countries that I was, studying. And so I'm in my hotel, and I thought, well, I'm going to be here a half a day. I might as well see if I can make some contacts. I called and I said, yeah, come on over. Now this is between Christmas and New Year's, so they were kind of downtime. Right. So in an hour, I was in the State Department talking with 3 different people off the record about from the different countries I was working in. Now how cool is that? Right. So God had that delay so I could, because otherwise my counselors or my committee people told me I had to fly to Washington D.C. and have these meetings. Right. I didn't have to fly. God did it for me. Right. Isn't that cool? Yeah. See, that's how He works. I get so excited to see how He works.
So you apply that same principle when you go out to witness in public.
What did you say?
You apply the same principle when you go out to pray for people in public. You just allow Him to open up the door.
Absolutely, and that's something I need to work on. I need to grow in that area. It's so awesome.
I just look for ways to bring God up in the conversation.
Yeah.
Here's a real simple one. You might say, "This is a nice sunny day today," and I go, "Yeah, isn't it cool that God made that day for us?" And I'll just see what their response is to the word God. Yeah. And if it's favorable, then I know I've got a little bit of an open door.
I kind of do that. I'll say, well, I said, this has been a good day. And they say, how are you? I said, I am blessed. God is so good. Or, something like that.
Watch their response. And then you can segue in and say, do you need any prayer? Are you hurting? So many people are in pain. It's an easy one. Just say, do you have pain in your body anywhere? And then say, can I pray for you? Yeah. And most people say yes because they're hurting and they want to get well.
That's right. I have found that. I've only had one person say they didn't want prayer.
Yeah, I've only had one too. Yeah.
So. Well, one gal said, well, what are you going to pray for? Because she wanted prayer for healing, but yet she really didn't. Right. It's like, okay. Right. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, God has, so what I was telling you, I think before, is I do plan to write a book. I need to. People have been telling me that for years, and just all these amazing experiences that God's given me. And He's just opened up doors.
You should, and don't wait because,
You've inspired me. Actually, I'm thinking, you're putting all these books. I mean, I have all these experiences. And actually, there's a pastor in town, not one of my pastors, but he prophesied over me. He said, I see God, He wants you to write this book. I see a pen, He wants you to write it. And I said, yeah. Right. So I'm going to have to spend a lot of time in a coffee shop because when I'm in my house, I can't write. So when I do research and when I work on my articles, I go to sit at Panera's or someplace with coffee. Right. So anyway.
So I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, you will.
You're part of our prayer group.
You will. Yeah, it's an honor, Jay.
I'm going to have a few snacks, so eat a light breakfast. Don't eat a heavy breakfast because I will bring some food and snacks.
Well, I don't know. You know Dave Klassman, don't you? Yeah. I'm sure you know a lot of people I know. Well, he does this Saturday morning prayer I usually go to, and I let him know I wouldn't be there because I had another obligation.
Yeah. So we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. And this is Linda Burkle. I got to say it right. In my mind, I had a different word completely.
It's a tricky name.
So, but good to have you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your testimony. Thanks for imparting to the people and letting them know. And she's just. And by the way, I like women pastors too. So don't let that bother you. So, but you pursued God. You go after Him in prayer. You got a master's. You got a doctorate. You're serving the Lord. You're fulfilling your destiny. You're leaving. You're going to write a book. You're going to leave a legacy. And that's what I encourage all of you to do too. Just go after the next thing God has for you. You don't have to look at the whole picture. Just go after the next thing that He has for you, and it'll be simply amazing. And that's what Caring Community is all about. We care about you. We care about seeing you develop yourself and become better than you are now, and leaving something for this world that will increase and add value to it while changing it in its present condition. So we thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you. We'll see you next time on Caring Community. Bye-bye.